10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
More that you can lean into your own personal discomfort, say what needs to be said in a non-offensive way, the more you make the world a better place.
All right, everyone. Good afternoon. Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram. Welcome all to Tuesdays Live at 5 with Jumpstart Mastery. I'm Andy Prisco. And on Tuesdays at 5 o'clock, we discuss everyday topics in the crisis de-escalation lens. But the topics are for everyday situations, everyday people, everyday life. And I couldn't think of a better one. Thank you, Brenda from B Branding, for this. Power struggles in everyday life. Power struggles that we have with our children, our coworkers, our neighbors, things that we perceive and entitle power struggle, or we witness. We witness struggles of power and authority between people. We see it an awful lot in institutional settings between people served and people that work there. Rules, when rules are subject to question in any way, that invites potentially power struggle. Authority, positions of authority, implied authority or express authority, a teacher in a classroom, a student having a difficult time presenting what is referred to as non-compliance, power struggle. The authority isn't able to render immediate control over someone who's presenting resistance, power struggle. Let's talk about power for a minute. I have always been of the mind, me, particularly when I was responsible to enforce rules in an institutional setting. Part of my job was the enforcement of rules and orders that came from physicians or nurses, and someone presented resistance to them. I never felt like the power was lost. I felt like I had the flexibility to exercise how that power would be presented. That's a very different mindset than feeling as though power is being taken and I must take it back. Let's talk about what might cause that experience for someone. Let's say someone renders a control statement. Stop that. Knock it off. Behave. And the problem persists. My power is not being recognized or abided or adhered to, someone might conclude. Some of this is lexicon words, but I'm trying to impart some ideas. So what? So someone is not listening to my message about a rule, policy, or law. How is that some abdication of my authority or power? And what is my sense of power? Where is that anchored? Is it anchored in my sense of duty? Is it anchored in my sense of self-respect? As I age, there's less and less circumstances and people can take from me. I credit that as a product of living through a variety of experiences that cause me to conclude that I'm really not in control of anything, particularly when it comes to other people. So if someone is presenting something that's pushing my power button, why do I have to do something about that? Well, you might say, well, this kid is disrupting a classroom. Something has to be dealt with. I agree. Does it have to be a power struggle? Or can it just be the use of messaging to present some options to someone? And then if they don't abide the options, then you have to enact or enforce whatever the change state is. What does that have to do with you? I can't tell you how many times a staff member, either in a school or a clinical setting or a involuntary detention setting, will become emotionally aroused because somebody is not producing compliant behavior. And somewhere they're taking personal responsibility for that, as if there is any. There is not. Your job is to message what the rules are and what the options are. Hey, if you continue to stand up and carry on in class this way, you're going to be removed. If you sit down and use a lower volume and tone of voice, you'll be welcome to stay and participate. What does any of that have to do with me and my sense of power or authority? If someone said to me in reply, "You've never been in," I would just say, just stop. Stop right there, because I've been in more than most people put together. So, and I'm telling you, it's not just my opinion. How we navigate those situations is a product of accepting that we have very little control. What's interesting is once you accept that, influencing others is a lot easier. Um, there are occasions where I think the data sets are pretty clear about this. There are occasions where the words power struggle get used to describe situations where there was an inappropriate response by a paid staff member. There was a power struggle. And very often it's associated with some kind of a negative outcome. You know why? Do you know what we're learning from the AI's processing of the body cam footage and what we've learned from encoding the data sets of tens of thousands of bad uses of force? Is that emotional dysregulation is the chief cause. Isn't it interesting that people associate power struggle with some kind of negative outcome? It's generally not associated. There was a power struggle, but the person who had the power prevailed. It's generally not used that way. It's used as a precursor to describe some kind of event that wasn't properly resolved. At least that's been my experience. Here's the point. There is really no power struggle if you don't make it one. I hate to be as simplistic as that, but if your child is not doing something that you want them to do, that's not a power struggle. That's you getting better at influence and supporting someone's agency and option. Yes, even if they have intellectual disability or developmental disability. Yes, even if they're on the autistic spectrum. Yes, even if they live with serious mental illness. Yes, even if they have a TBI. Yes, even if it's when it's a stranger. If you become a facilitator of options rather than a seat of power, you're going to suddenly discover that you have an extraordinary amount of influence over people. It's when we step into situations demanding that others recognize our authority and power that we seem to be the first to report that power struggles are encountered on a regular basis here. And I seem to be getting in a lot of power struggles. Why? Why are you getting in a lot of power struggles? Why am I getting in a lot of power struggles? I guess power is important. Authority is important. Someone's respect is important. Well, that's going to keep leading to my experience of power struggles. I have self-respect. I don't need someone to respect me. I'd like someone to abide by code of conduct and the rules, but if someone hurls some insult at me, it doesn't move my needle anymore. We become interested in power when we start to feel like we're not in control of things. And guess what? We're not. As a steward of a classroom, I'm responsible for safety and learning. As a uniformed officer in an involuntary setting, I'm responsible for safety, milieu, and order. How I do that is going to have a direct relationship to the outcome. If I run around and you speak to any seasoned staff member in any juvenile justice or adult corrections facility, you'll see very often people new to the profession coming in, verbalizing at every opportunity their authority. And either people served, identifying that real quickly for what it is, there's someone with insecurity who needs this position to exercise some kind of sense of power, more than likely from a place of not having any and finding a job that could give it to them. You'll find seasoned staff who counsel that pretty quickly. Hey, if you want to render influence here, you probably want to dial down the power talk or all the authority with which you have been entrusted and just try to connect with people. Everybody already knows you have the keys, you get to go home, they don't. You have a uniform, they don't. You have access to things, they don't. You don't need to remind everybody of the power. Power struggles are things that we create. They don't need to exist, at least in my mind. Now, what happens when you're dealing with someone who's having that difficulty? All I can say is that if you want to maximize your likelihood of influence, don't give it back. If you have the power, you'll be able to exercise it. You never not had it. In an institutional setting where seclusion and restraint are available as tools, I always have the power, whether someone believes it or not. And getting them to believe it is not my job. Carrying it out is my job. You're not going to touch me. Let's run it. Let's fight. Okay, well, we're going to do this. We're going to do this, and there's 10 of us. We're going to prevail. You want to talk like you're going to prevail. Okay. I don't need to make you believe it. I guess we just have to go do this. Come on. We got to put hands on him. We have to bring him against his will to a place where he's going to have medication administered against his will. There's a physician's order for that. He believed that wasn't going to happen. That's not my problem to solve. My problem is to carry out the responsibilities. Getting him to believe it is something that he has to deal with. I don't have to make him deal with that. I presented the options. If you continue to resist, it's going to be forcibly administered. If you cooperate, we can put it in the progress notes. It can help you at your next hearing. It's your choice. That's agency. So, power struggles in everyday life, the more that you consider the idea that there's no need to articulate or verbalize power. Most of the time, people know if you have it or you don't. And even if people don't know, you know if you have it or you don't. And if you do have it, you're either going to try to influence someone through their own agency and invitation to choose collaboration, which is what we would hope you would do. Or if the conditions require you to, you'll have to enact your power. Either way, getting the person to accept that or believe it, that's not on you. And we take that as a cyclical challenge to get someone to believe that we have power or authority. We don't. We have influence. If you want to get someone to collaborate with you to share power and influence, share responsibility, the recommendation would be to do things through invitation. The world would be a better place if people did that. How might you go about that? Consider the use of the active listening skills, a good VDSP, or a good OFNR from nonviolent communication. I hope this was meaningful for you. We have these things with kids. We have them with coworkers. We have them with adults. And 99 times out of 100, we are part of the investment in the power struggle. The more that we accept that the presentation of our power is going to create struggle, and the more that we try to do things through invitation, the more influence we will have and the less power struggle there will be. That's the best I can kind of string together. I wish you all well. I hope you got something out of this live today. Please join us on Thursday at the Jumpstart Mastery Network, where we do these lives with professionals who are generally charged with de-escalation duty. I'm actually in Eastern Washington. I'll be presenting at the Northwest Regional CIT Conference tomorrow, which is where I am at the Northern Quest Casino and Hotel and Resort. And if you haven't registered for the conference and you want to get a great lineup of speakers, my good friend Steve Einhaus here from Eastern Washington is one of the keynotes. Used to be a consumer of services here, and our state's Behavioral Health Administration was secluded and restrained an awful lot. Now today talks about that to change people's minds on the use of power, the exercising of power. Steve doesn't leave a dry eye in the house when he's done. So maybe you can come check out his presentation. All the best to all of you. Take good care.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
More that you can lean into your own personal discomfort, say what needs to be said in a non-offensive way, the more you make the world a better place.